You don't see teeth. You see a wall of moving flesh, a tunnel of pink and black closing faster than you can process. The water around you twists, sucked forward like liquid air into an enormous, breathing cave. For a fraction of a second, you're suspended between sunlight above and a cavernous darkness below. Then everything tilts. The ocean disappears. You are no longer in the sea. You are inside something alive. The pressure, the smell, the sound of muscles sliding and contracting around you, and the horrifying realization that the thing swallowing you is not trying to kill you. It's just eating. If you like understanding the world from angles no one else ever explains, subscribe. Here, every what if is taken to its ultimate consequences, with logic, biology, physics, and both feet firmly on reality. Humans have been obsessed with this idea for thousands of years. A man swallowed by a great fish in an ancient story. Sailors' tales of monstrous whales big enough to hold ships in their guts. Cartoons and movies where characters live inside whales, light fires, walk around as if they're in a bizarre underwater apartment. It sounds absurd, but it sticks. Somewhere in the back of your mind there's a childlike question that never quite died. Could that actually happen? Start from the real ocean. Whales are not monsters invented for myth. They are mammals, warm-blooded, breathing air, nursing their young, that just happen to be the size of small buildings. A blue whale's tongue can weigh as much as an elephant. Its heart is the size of a small car. When a creature that large opens its mouth, it creates its own temporary universe of water, sound, and pressure. Most of the time, you are nothing to them. A diver, a swimmer, even a small boat is just noise at the surface of a world they barely need to notice. But sometimes, in those rare, chaotic feeding moments when tons of water and fish surge through a whale's mouth in a single gulp, the scale of things overlaps. You, a 70-kilogram primate, drift into the path of a 30-ton animal that is not looking where it's going. You know this isn't pure fantasy, because we've seen versions of it. Divers briefly trapped in humpback whale mouths and then spat back out. Kayakers scooped up in a lunge feed and thrown free again. These are accidents, miscalculations in a violent rush to eat. Nobody involved thinks the whale wanted them. But this scenario goes further. Not a brush with the mouth. Not being spat out. The question is ruthless. What if you were actually swallowed? What if the whale didn't choke, didn't panic, didn't spit you out at the last second, and you passed all the way inside? The myths stop there. Reality is just getting started. We're only touching the surface of what that would mean. To understand what happens next, you have to choose your whale. Not every species can even attempt to swallow a human whole. Many of the largest whales, blue, fin, humpback, are baleen whales. They don't have big, grabbing teeth. They have keratin plates that act like combs, filtering tiny prey out of enormous mouthfuls of water. Their throats, despite the size of their heads, are surprisingly narrow, built for krill and small fish, not for entire human bodies. Then there are toothed whales, sperm whales, orcas, lesser-known deep-diving hunters. They eat larger prey, squid, fish, sometimes other marine mammals. Their throats are wider, their stomachs designed to process chunks of flesh. If your goal is to be swallowed whole, an odd goal, but here we are, a sperm whale is your most plausible candidate. Its mouth is vast. Its esophagus can stretch enough to admit something human-sized. Now, set the conditions. You're in open water with no scuba tank, no special suit, no weapons. You're conscious, able to move, but unprepared. The whale is not targeting you. It's in a feeding event, chasing prey. You're pulled into its path at the worst possible moment. You are not instantly crushed by a bite, not cut in half, not snapped by jaws. You're lucky in the unluckiest way. You go in more or less intact. Inside the whale, three realities dominate everything: oxygen, pressure, and chemistry. You are not in an air pocket. You are surrounded by water, mucus, partially swallowed prey, and the constantly moving surfaces of living tissue. There is almost no breathable air. What little gas exists is trapped in bubbles, saturated with CO2 and digestive vapors. Temperature becomes another rule. The inside of a whale is warm, roughly your body temperature or higher. At first, that sounds comforting. In practice, it means your body's delicate chemical balance is being pushed from all sides: overheating from warmth, hypoxia from lack of oxygen, shock from the violence of the ride. Finally, time. You are not being stored. You are being processed. Stomach acids, enzymes, mechanical churning. These are not things from cartoons. They are industrial-grade biological tools, evolved over millions of years to break down flesh, bone, cartilage, and shell. Your existence inside this animal is on a timer measured in minutes, not hours. On paper, the rules look clear and clinical. In the real moment, they explode into chaos. It doesn't begin with a clean gulp. It begins with impact. You're in the water, maybe watching whales feed, maybe completely unaware. The world around you suddenly darkens as something enormous passes overhead. A pressure wave slams into your chest, then everything tilts and surges forward. You don't swim into the whale. The whale's feeding motion drags you in like a conveyor belt made of water. Inside the mouth, there is no cinematic welcome. It's a storm, water hammering against flesh, fish bodies colliding with you in blind panic, the muffled creak and grind of bones and cartilage as the whale's jaw flexes and closes. Your arms pin against your sides. Your mask, if you have one, is ripped away. Vision disappears completely. You feel surfaces, not spaces. The roof of the mouth, ridged and rubbery, slams you downward. The tongue, massive and muscular, shifts under you like a living floor in an earthquake. Every movement of the whale multiplies into crushing, twisting forces inside. Your sense of direction evaporates. There is only more pressure and slightly less pressure. Reflex takes over. Your body fights to protect your airway. You clamp your mouth shut, try not to inhale, but your lungs are already burning from the first shock. You swallow seawater. Your ears scream with pressure shifts. Somewhere very close, valves snap shut as the whale blocks its nasal passages to keep water out during the gulp. The sound is like distant doors slamming in a flooded hall. Then the mouth seals. The water inside is compressed, forced backward. You go with it. You're pressed against softer tissue now, funneled toward a narrowing tube. This is the moment in the stories where the whale hesitates, coughs, spits the human back out. In our scenario, there is no hesitation. Muscles contract in a wave. The esophagus grips and pulls. You are being swallowed. From the outside, it looks like nothing. The whale surfaces, blows, dives again. Another successful feed in an invisible ocean. On the inside, a human life is being dragged through living machinery designed for one purpose: to make other lives disappear. And this is only the beginning of what it will do to you. What comes next is far worse. The tube that takes you down is not rigid. It's not a clean slide. It's a muscular tunnel that squeezes, releases, squeezes again, forcing you deeper with each contraction. You don't fall into the stomach. You are milked into it. Every wave of peristalsis crushes your ribs a little more, bruises your organs, forces water from your lungs, squeezes your limbs into whatever shape fits. Darkness here is absolute. There is no glow, no hint of where down is. Your only reference is the direction of the pain. You're trying to find space to expand your chest, but the walls don't care. They pulse to the whale's rhythm, not yours. Somewhere far above, you imagine light, surface, sky. That world is already gone. When you finally enter the stomach, it's not into an empty chamber. You collide with partially digested prey, soft, dissolving tissue, cartilage, ink from squids mixing with bile and acid into a murky, burning slurry. Your skin feels it first, a prickling, then a sting, then a spreading heat that grows more intense with every second. The air, if you can call it that, is heavy with CO2 and other gases. You try to gasp and get almost nothing. Your lungs reflexively draw in a mix of acid mist and depleted oxygen. Coughing here is lethal. It wastes the last breath you didn't have. Your chest muscles spasm against the weight of fluid, against the pressure of the stomach wall. Your senses begin to detach. Smell collapses into one overwhelming impression: chemical rot. Taste becomes a uniform metallic burn. Sight is meaningless. Touch is everything. And what it tells you is that there is no space that belongs to you anymore. Every direction is blocked by something. Tissue, slurry, prey remains, folds of mucous membrane. On top of all this, the whale moves. It dives. The pressure outside its body rises. While you're protected from the full force of the deep by layers of tissue and bone, the subtle changes still filter through. Your ears pop. Your blood vessels strain. Your already stressed body has to cope with the equivalent of being dragged into a pressurized, hot, toxic coffin that's sinking. Mentally, something cracks. You are not designing escape routes anymore. There is nowhere to go. You are not looking for tools. You have none. The only questions left are brutally simple. How long before you lose consciousness? And will your brain shut down before the stomach finishes what it started? This is the point in the scenario where people like to imagine hidden possibilities. A pocket of air, a way to cling to the stomach wall, a chance to trigger a gag reflex and be vomited back out intact. Biology is unforgiving. Those outcomes are not impossible, but they are vanishingly rare compared to what the system is built to do. Everything in here is pushing you toward one final state: dissolved, unrecognizable, absorbed. You have passed the point where anything you do can reverse the situation. For both you and the whale, this is now a one-way trajectory. At some moment, hard to mark in minutes, easy to feel in your fading sense of self, your body crosses a threshold. Oxygen levels in your blood drop below what your brain can tolerate. The burning in your lungs shifts into a dull, distant ache as nerve cells begin to fail. Your thoughts stretch out, fragment, slow. Your skin, already compromised by acid, starts to blister and peel. The outer layers of tissue soften. Eyes, lungs, exposed mucous membranes suffer first. You would scream if you had enough air left. Instead, your muscles twitch uselessly. If you were watching this from a cold, clinical distance, you could map it out: hypoxia, acidosis, organ failure. A cascade set off not by one dramatic injury, but by the combined insult of suffocation, chemical burn, and trauma. There is no single blow to point at, no cinematic crunch. just a system collapsing under too many attacks at once. The whale, meanwhile, feels almost nothing out of the ordinary. Its stomach is used to dealing with large, struggling prey. A giant squid fights in its own death throes as fiercely as you do. To the whale's nervous system, your presence is just one more pattern of motion fading into stillness, one more body being reduced to nutrients. From the outside, the ocean is quiet. A fluke slips beneath the surface. The animal dives, levels off, cruises through the dark, calling occasionally to others. On sonar, it's a moving echo among many. Ships pass overhead. Surface storms come and go. Somewhere, people on land repeat the old stories of men surviving inside whales for days or weeks. Inside this real whale, you do not survive for days. You do not build a campfire or sit on a tongue and look at the stars through teeth. You last, at best, a handful of minutes before consciousness goes. After that, whatever happens to your body happens without you. The drama ends in your skull long before it ends in the stomach. This is the most brutal truth of the scenario. The climax is invisible. No explosion, no heroic escape, no negotiation between human and beast. Just silence, and a digestion process that will continue whether you accept it or not. But the consequences of such an event wouldn't stay in the dark. If a person were documented as being swallowed, even partially, by a whale in the modern world, it would spread instantly. Video from boats, sonar data, rescue attempts, interviews with stunned witnesses. It would become a global story, not because it's likely, but because it strikes at something deep in us. The fear of being small in a world of incomprehensibly large forces. Scientists would be pulled into the conversation. Marine biologists explaining throat diameters on talk shows. Physiologists breaking down survival times inside low-oxygen cavities. Mythologists tracing the story back through religious texts, folktales, sailors' logs. The contrast between the clinical reality and the comforting fiction would be hard to ignore. Whale-watching industries would face a new kind of scrutiny. Tours that once sold closeness to gentle giants would now be asked about risk assessments, minimum distances, emergency protocols. Laws might tighten, not because whales have become more dangerous, but because our perception of that danger has been violently refreshed. On the other side, the event could also deepen empathy for whales. The same coverage that shows one tragic encounter would also show the scale and majesty of these animals. Their migrations, their songs, the threats they face from ship strikes, nets, and noise. The idea that we almost killed off creatures capable of swallowing us by accident would sit uneasily in the public mind. Culturally, something subtle would shift. The old stories of men living peacefully inside whales would lose some of their innocent charm. They'd be seen more clearly for what they are. Metaphors for being lost, trapped, transformed. Not biology lessons. At the same time, our appetite for extreme scenarios would only grow. Other what-ifs would follow, each asking the same underlying question. How far can we push the boundary between human vulnerability and the indifferent power of nature? All of this would swirl around a single uncomfortable conclusion that the headlines might mention, but most people would avoid staring at for too long. So, what would really happen if you were swallowed alive by a whale? The most honest answer is mercilessly simple. If you are fully swallowed, not just scooped into the mouth and spat out, but carried down the esophagus into the stomach, you die. Not later. Not after days of reflection and conversation with your own fears. Within minutes. You die primarily from lack of oxygen. There is no stable, breathable air pocket waiting inside. Every second inside that cramped, fluid-filled space is suffocating you. On top of that, you're being chemically burned by acids strong enough to strip flesh from bone, mechanically crushed by muscle contractions designed to push prey through, and battered by the whale's own movements as it swims and dives. Could there be rare, bizarre exceptions? Yes, you might be trapped in the mouth, pinned between baleen and water, and spat out once the whale realizes it has something too large or too strange in there. You might be lodged in a part of the throat in a way that triggers a gag reflex and gets you vomited back out, badly injured but alive. Those scenarios rely on being partly swallowed, then rejected. They are survival by malfunction. But a true, complete swallowing where you end up in the stomach and then somehow emerge intact is, in realistic biological terms, not survivable. The stories that suggest otherwise are not glimpses of a secret possibility. They are comforting fictions built before we understood how digestion or oxygen or pressure actually work. The deeper truth nobody tells you when they joke about being swallowed by a whale is this: our fantasies about nature often depend on nature being soft, negotiable, almost human. The real ocean is not. It is a system of rules written in chemistry, physics, and evolution. You don't bargain with those rules from inside a stomach. In the end, the whale in this scenario is not cruel. It is not even aware of you as a you. It is an animal feeding, following instincts that kept its species alive for millions of years. You are the one out of place, a land mammal, fragile and air-dependent, trying to survive in a space that was never designed for your kind. So picture the scene one last time. The ocean surface, calm again. A fluke disappearing into the depths. Somewhere far below, a huge warm body moving through dark water, following deep currents and ancient roots. Inside it, the last traces of a human, proteins, fats, minerals, are being broken down and folded into the biology of a creature that will go on living its whale life, singing its whale songs, indifferent. The question that remains is not, could I somehow build a life inside a whale? It's harsher and more revealing, given how small we are against the systems we move through. Oceans, climates, economies, histories. How often do we mistake places that can briefly contain us for places that can actually keep us alive? And if you knew, beyond all doubt, that the inside of the whale is death, would you still swim that close to its mouth, just for the thrill of saying you touched the edge of something that could erase you without even meaning to?